Great. So thanks for joining. And maybe just to start out, I know we've known each other for a while, but just for the people in the audience in the room today, do you want to give us a bit of an understanding of your journey as an entrepreneur and yourself?
Perfect. Firstly, thank you, Jason, for thinking of me. Happy to be here. It's always inspiring to be, amongst group of entrepreneurs, people who are trying to move against the tide, and trying to do things that are challenging in whatever capacity. It's a very interesting journey, right? You discover yourself a lot more, and great to see all the initiatives, right? So Michelle, Jason, and team. I think this is great. It's again encouraging to see a community getting built up and developed, and we're sure that a lot of entrepreneurial ideas that are high impact beyond Mauritius on the continent or global will come out of these initiatives that you started. Well, a little bit of background about me. Always wanted to be an entrepreneur, even when I was in school. And that was always a thought. I learned spelling of the word entrepreneur. I asked my uncle what it means, and I mean, it had an exciting meaning. I thought, okay, you control, things are in your control. Only to realize that they are never in your control. Um, so yeah, I came to, I am from India originally, grew up in Delhi, did my engineering from a city called Jaipur, worked in Mumbai for a few years, came to Mauritius in the year 2010, 2011. That was almost the same time I got married. So I joked that I came to Mauritius for honeymoon and we never went planned. But it's more or less, the timing aligns. My daughter, Shania, is here, who's 12 years old, was born in Mauritius. We went to delivery for India, but yeah, she's more Mauritian. When we go to India, the kids say, when are we going back home? And I think this is supposed to be home, right? Uh, so yeah, so Mauritius, I came here as part of an Indian organization that was expanding into Africa. And this we were building up a stock commodities exchange at that time. This was the year 2010, 2012, between that time. So yeah, we tried hard. I was part of the team. We tried to scale, expand into Africa. Only to, it didn't end up well. So that was failure number one. That was part of. Well, I was not the investor, entrepreneur, or anything, but I was part of the journey. But very involved in the Africa expansion. So that was a little bit of setback. Tried to do a management buyout of the company again. It did not succeed. So when that happened, me and my wife, we thought we've got to do something entrepreneurial. So we set up retail outlets in Mauritius called the Grand Bazaar of India, which has been an exciting journey from a Mauritian standpoint. I joined Appreciate for some point of time. I was heading the digital and transaction banking at Appreciate. And I Peach Payments started, so I joined Peach Payments while it was still a very young organization. I knew the founder from long time back. The company started in 2012 in South Africa. It was a fairly small company, when I knew. And at that time, the founder said, "Come join." I said, "My small clothing business is bigger than your business, right?" But only to realize that technology scales faster than anything. We're talking about leverage and capacity, right? So anything that's tech oriented has the capacity of scaling a lot faster. Officially, unofficially, I started engaging with Peach Payments when it was fairly small officially, and officially full-time joined sometime in 2011 when Mauritius was the second country, still a fairly small organization. A bit of background on Peach Payments, what we do, we're an online payments company, started in South Africa in 2012. Mauritius was, effectively in full-fledged operation, was the second country along with Kenya. Today, Peach Payments operates in 11 countries. We have physical entities in 11 countries on the continent in Africa. We cover 15 countries in Africa. We are a team of a little over 200 people spread across the continent. We've grown many fold in the last 5-6 years. Of course, the good thing is digital payments, digital commerce is growing, right? So we're just following the trajectory. We are part of the same journey. We are building systems and scaling it across geographies. So yeah, it's an exciting entrepreneurial journey, to be part of a fast-scaling organization. Fintech, as you know, is a buzzword. All investment is coming into fintech in the last 10, 15, 20 years. We are seeing that trend. There's still a lot to be done in Africa, and the exciting with regards to what is ahead of us. So yeah.
Super rich background, and thanks for sharing. And interesting to see how your journey moves both on the corporate side, also on the entrepreneurial side. and the different stages you've been experienced that. So maybe with today's topic, maybe we'll start with that. What does doing more with less mean to you?
I think daily life.
Daily life?
Right. I mean, you never have enough. I don't remember when there was a situation where we could say that all traffic lights are green, that's when I'm going to leave house and, I'm going to reach my destination. And that's every day, right? I mean, every day is about optimizing, every day is about leveraging, especially in business, right? You never have everything that you need, right? I mean, today we are covering 15 countries. Every country is demanding for, I need this tech, I need this capability, I need to localize. You got to prioritize, what moves the needle. And something that I realized is the real strategy is the ability to say no and to say no to the right thing. Right. I mean, when we started, we thought that, we got to do all of this, right? Spread the net wider. But sometimes, the thing is, you don't have capability, capacity to do everything, and then you've got to be selective. If you want to do 10 things and you have to select 3, then you got to put your mind that these 3 are going to move the needle, right? I mean, these 3 are going to be the high impact opportunities that we are going to be chasing and not the other 7 for now, maybe later. And that gives, when we are deciding, it looks difficult and it's like, why not everything, right? But in hindsight, when I look back, these are the best decisions that we have taken and given focus, direction to the organization as well, to the team as well, in terms of, what are those opportunities, where is the gold in the dust?
Yeah, I think 2 points you mentioned there, which I think are super valuable. One is the constraints, and then the other is the prioritization. Both I think super important when thinking about that journey. But maybe doubling down on the constraints. I personally feel that sometimes constraints breed innovation. When you don't have all the green lights and you have those red lights within the way, you're forced to approach the problem differently. I was wondering, in your experience and in that journey, has there been a point where the constraints were beneficial almost or became an advantage of how you approached it differently from others?
Definitely. Many a times. I mean, there are so many examples. Sometimes, you feel that this is a hiring that you need to do, right? To scale faster, right? I mean, every organization operates like the first constraint is a budget, right? I mean, that is money. That is the first constraint. I mean, when you need the money, the investor is not available. The thing is the revenue is not serving when you want to scale at, beyond capacity. Everything does not happen at the right time, right? So you got to optimize yourself and align with what is available now and how can I make the same impact with what I may or may not have, in terms of resources. So we have to take those decisions even in terms of hiring people, right? In terms of thinking, is this role optimal or not? In terms of building a new technology, how we are building that new technology, whether if you're going to a new market, are we going directly and putting a full investment, or we are going through a partnership and testing the waters first before we expand? So in all these aspects, the constraints have helped us be frugal, right? Test the waters before we know that, now is the time that we can really scale to the fullest and go all in.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's constraints forces you to test before fully investing. And I think it's almost counterintuitive at the early stages. It's you can't do everything. And I think that's key to understand, even though we want to, we've got to start super niche, super narrow. It feels counterintuitive, but it's the only way you get your foot in the door. And I think when we talk about early stage, you spoke about prioritization. We have such limited capacity at the early stages that the return on investment in terms of what you prioritize and what you focus on can be the success or failure of your company. So when we think about decision making in terms of prioritizing, do you have any frameworks or any thinking that you use when you think, particularly at early stage, if we're looking that you approach your prioritization?
I feel we are fairly decent size organization with we serving 4,000 companies across the continent. Doing around $2.5 billion of volumes. That is payments being transacted through each payments across the continent, right? but I would say we still, I mean, it still feels early stage, so I think, I don't know when that early stage goes, and when you can call yourself a mature organization, especially if you're scaling, right? I mean, if you're scaling, some of the other entities, very early stage, some are in a sort of an optimal, sort of a maturity stage. So, I mean, different, well, I mean, even in an organization at a different stage, I would first say that, we still feel we are very much in an early stage from a lot of aspects in terms of what we are trying to achieve. Um, so yes, I mean, and we mentioned about optimization of resources and being descriptive, being focused in terms of what you want to achieve. So that has always been part of the story for us on a in a generic sort of context. Again, what was the second part of your question?
Well, actually, I think you raised it was basically about prioritization, how you look at making the decisions for each of the areas. But what you mentioned there is quite interesting, talking about the different stages. I mean, when some of the founders in the room look at you saying, "Oh, you still feel like you're a startup growing and you've got 200 staff members," that's a bit like, "Oh, wow, how can he feel like that when it's just me and he's feeling the same?" And I think that brings a really interesting way to look at it. Whereas this is not somewhere where you get to a destination where, okay, I don't have the capacity now to hire someone, but when I get my funding, I'll have enough capacity for everything. No, that's never the case. You're always constrained with your capacity. Even when you're a multi-billion-dollar company like Apple, with billions in the bank, you still have constraints. And the mindset that you use to deal with those is super important, no matter what stage you're at.
Definitely.
Yeah. So in your case, has there been a particular, phase where capacity felt most constrained? Is it now, or was it when you first joined?
Always,
Always.
so I mean, 2 years back, we raised $31 million, right, for scale. And at that time, we didn't know, like, oh, it's a lot of money, right? What are we going to do with this? Until 18 months later,
It's all gone.
until 18 months later. So, I mean, the thing is, at that time, it was like, fair enough, right? I mean, we need to build scalable technology. If we want to scale on the continent, we need to, build something which is a lot more robust, a lot more scalable, which is solving the problem in every single country. Africa is 50 plus countries, and every country is different the way it operates. So we bought a few companies, we expanded to Francophone West Africa, we bought a company that gave us access to 7 different countries. We bought a company in Mauritius that helped us, go deep. We bought a tech company and a tech platform that helped us enhance our technology. Well, the money was not fully gone, we were still generating revenue and so on and so forth. But yes, we did feel, well, today when we look back, it's always scaling, right? So you always need more capacity, more resources to scale further. But again, raising money every time is not the solution, right? How do you build a sustainable? Again, I come back to the same thing. How do you build a sustainable business with a set of resources that you have? How do you build systems that you can replicate in different scenarios? In our case, those scenarios are different countries. Those are different geographies, right? So we had the core payment technology stack. We started e-commerce, right? We had that same core payment technology stack. We started in-store payment, which is your point of sale payments. And we thought, okay, let's build our own payouts, bulk payouts system, right? So we optimized a lot of the capability that we already have to solve problems. How did we identify those problems? Problem X is giving me 10x return, right? And problem Y is giving me maybe 1.5 or 2x return. So what do I focus on? I focus on problem X, right? Maybe the same amount of investment. So there are a lot of, when you're entrepreneurial, there are a lot of shiny balls that will come in your way.
Yeah.
Right? What do you mean? Every day. We're working on a lot of interesting stuff. You'll hear about it. We're also working on agentic commerce now, but it's a very small team of experts who understand AI and who are building something. Right? We've not deployed like 50 resources to build on AI. It's like maybe 1 or 2 people who are experts and who are developing something. well, in all of this journey, AI has helped us a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So we see artificial intelligence as a junior developer, right? So we used AI to the best of our capability. A lot of our development work happens through artificial intelligence. And today we are also looking at replicating that in different departments in an organization to build efficiencies. Well, that is optimization as well. Thankfully, we are in a time where we have AI. If we did not have, we would probably need 100 more resources to do what we are doing today to achieve the same set of results, right? So this time is very exciting that we are able to do more with less truly.
Yeah, I think super important to look at how we leverage technology for the capacity. From what you're saying as well, though, for the founders, just that takeaway that this is a feeling that never leaves you. No matter how big your company gets, you'll always feel constrained by your capacity. And it's about getting the right mindset early, not getting to the destination. It's about how you develop that mindset to view the opportunities to creatively solve for your capacity lack. And I think that's super important. You mentioned two things which I quite like and I want us to maybe touch on. The partnership you mentioned, some acquisitions later in the journey, but this partnership aspect in terms of understanding the capacity is sometimes not misunderstood, but it's not given enough value. And I'm talking from the early stage all the way up to acquisition stage. But if we maybe take you back a bit to the earlier days of Peach Payment or your other organizations that you started, how did you approach partnerships and networking? And did you see that as a capacity lever? And did you consciously think about how do I develop partnerships or develop my network in order to increase my capacity?
Over the years, this is my personal experience as well. It's partnerships are not transactional. These are relationships based on trust. A trust is way beyond a contract, right? And it's quid pro quo. You give first, you get to get. I would say today, there are so many organizations that have stood with us for over 10 years. These are bonds that I don't think anything can break, unless something goes really south. But these relationships that are based on trust go a long way. I'll give you one example from the context of Mauritius, right? So through a partner, we got a mandate that, do all of us know Starlink?
Yeah.
Yes, no, anybody does not know? It's a satellite internet as part of SpaceX, right? So you get internet through a satellite, not through a tower, which is 4 or 5 kilometers away from where you are, right? So, and the founder is Elon Musk, right? So we got a mandate that, Starlink wants to go live in multiple African countries. So for them, what matters is single payment integration. Can we get multiple countries, right? Why we expanded to 15 countries? I think one of the reasons is these global partners and merchants, right? So, we said, of course we can do it. So they said, okay, cool. Are you present in Eswatini? I'm like, okay. Like we're present in South Africa, how difficult would it, be to go to Eswatini? Eswatini is a country inside of South Africa, right? So we somehow figured out, we set up and we never said no, right? And so we trying, and somehow we figured out set up an entity. It was fairly easy. Then they said, but Eswatini is part of South Africa, so a lot of similarities, same bank, same ecosystem, right? So it becomes a lot more easier. So, okay, so the next one they say is, okay, we need Madagascar in like 3 weeks. Are you present in Madagascar? I said, of course. Who says no if the demand or the request is coming from the organization that is run by probably the richest man in the world, right? Now we got to figure out how do you set up a company in Madagascar, right? And the thing is, we are in a regulated space, which means you need license. Some countries to get a license for us to operate in a full-fledged manner, it can take 2 years, 3 years as well, right? So at a lot of time we are waiting, to be fully licensed, and usually the regulator is a central bank, so not the easiest organization to deal with because they have to ensure compliance from all aspects, right? Fairly so. Cool. So Madagascar, to figure out, then, I called up MCB. I met somebody from MCB, right? Yeah. So Stephanie from MCB was like, we got to solve this. You guys are present in Madagascar. We need to set this up. right? And we had partnered, I mean, if you Google MCB Juice and Peach Payments, you'll see that, we had launched MCB Juice on e-commerce, through our technology. So she said, cool, let me see what I can do. How much time do we have? I said, like, maybe 2.5 weeks now, because 3 days, figuring out how to set up an entity in Madagascar. So, that's not possible. I was like, I mean, this is an opportunity we have, it's time sensitive. It's an opportunity for MCB, it's an opportunity for Peach Payments. What can we do? It was amazing, how this partnership worked. And well, it took us a little more than 3 weeks. And Elon Musk had tweeted that we are live, we were not live. That company got Peach Payments and then MCB, are still trying to figure out a solution. But maybe 2 or 3 days later, but we did go live in Madagascar. And all of that happened through a partnership that we had with the Mauritius Commercial Bank that we were able to leverage at the right time. They had an entity, I mean, they're fully licensed, and we were integrated into MCB, and we could activate, a large global organization in a country, Madagascar, right? Where I have been once. Our team has never been to Madagascar. Right. So this is the power of partnerships, right? And now we are building these partnerships across the continent. Today we work with over 10 or maybe 15 banks on the continent. We are talking to 20 more banks in the continent so that we are able to give coverage, to organizations who are looking to sell into Africa. Why? Because look at the opportunity. 1.4 billion is the population of Africa. The median age is less than 20. That means these are your future consumers, future entrepreneurs. Africa is highly entrepreneurial, right? Wherever there's uncertainty, you see a lot of entrepreneurial energy, and that is Africa, right? Wherever there's discomfort, you see a lot of entrepreneurial energy, and that is Africa. So the big picture is big enough that the world is going to look at this 1.4 billion consumer base, to sell their products, services, or to collaborate with. Even African countries, I mean, entrepreneurs operating in one country in Africa are going to expand to 5 more countries. So what do they need to do business? I mean, of course, apart from an entity, what they need is payments, right? And payments is a highly regulated business where you need to be compliant, right? Today, it's like, let's take the example. We also, do payment for some of the other larger players like Netflix and Uber, right? If you take any global organization, if they have to come and launch in 10 African countries, they have to, let's say the example of Mauritius, they have to integrate with the banks to accept payments, right? If it's online e-commerce payments, they have to integrate it with MCB Juice, Blink by ML, and so on and so forth, right? Whoever's there. That is 5 or 6 integrations in one country. You're talking about 10 countries, which means 50 integrations, which means if a company has to do, they need 50 engineers, to manage it on a regular basis, to do the integration, and it will take them 3 to 4 years. What are we solving? You've come in the next 1 month, you're ready to do business in multiple countries, right? So these are systems that are scalable, right? You build a system for one country, you replicate it in other countries, and it all is happening through partners, through bank A in one country is able to serve in country, the other country where they have a presence. And today we've integrated into, I think, 60 plus platforms that, the entrepreneurs or e-commerce companies or businesses use to do their business to make things seamless. These are all partnerships. Right? To build these, it takes 5 years, right? So we know that if anybody now has to come into this market and reach the same level that we are on a continental basis, at least we are, let's not say 5 years, technology is also advancing, at least we are 18 months ahead, right? Of anybody who's trying to do it in any of the markets that they are present in, right? So, but those partnerships of trust take time.
Yes, yeah.
And you got to invest into it.
Yeah, I think to your point, they take time, and a lot of times we think about networking, which leads to partnerships, being a soft skill. It's a something you do if you have time or whatever, but the value that it can bring is super important over the long term. The relationships that you develop can be huge levers for your capacity, and it's not transactional. I think that's a super important point. It's about ecosystem. It's about how can we all support each other, because you don't know the next time that they're able to introduce you to Elon and get you activated on Starlink. Fingers crossed, hopefully, for the rest of you. But I think that is something we often think of as a soft skill that we kind of put to the side. We have other things to focus on, but it is super valuable, and it's something you should actively understand how you're approaching it, what networks you want to be a part of, you want to be seen in there, how are you bringing value as well to these networks to then develop those longer term partnerships. And you mentioned something there that for the founders in the room is something that we discuss often, which is there's a stage where you realize that working harder as a founder is not enough. It doesn't matter, there's not enough hours in the day. You're working as hard as you possibly can. But it's not enough to scale to the next step. And that's really where you mentioned the word, and it can either trigger you for some PTSD or not, but like systems, procedures, and processes. In my corporate life, I hated them. You know, I was like, geez, why are we mapping another process? Like, I can't believe it. Like, do we really need that? But then as we got to entrepreneurial life, I would do it without mapping it or putting down a system. But what I realized was the value about that would then remain with me as the founder and not with the company. And as you're scaling, you have to kind of give away a lot of that value from yourself into the company by setting up these systems and procedures. I just wanted to know, did you ever face that where you're like, okay, I need to think about it differently here. It's not about working harder. It's more about how can I work smarter and like kind of transverse these processes and these outcomes to scale across different countries or different team members.
I mean, we keep solving for this, right? And in a fast scaling company, there are a lot of new things, new challenges every day that we didn't know is going to be a challenge tomorrow, right? We keep building systems and processes. And I mean, I myself also try to do this thing. I want to work. I mean, you gotta be efficient about things. If you want to build a scaling organization, right? Look, hard work or not hard work, this is again nuanced. It depends on what is hard work for me, or whether it's number of hours, whether it is the effort that I'm putting in, or whether I'm applying my mind to build something scalable and sustainable, right? I feel as an entrepreneur, it's challenging in all directions, right? It stretches you beyond your capacity, right? So the first solution is, how do I build systems, to at least solve for stuff that is repeatable, whether it is expanding to a country or whether it is a small task of checking emails or prioritizing your day in terms of where you're focusing. It is highly important to build those systems because we do have a habit. Anybody who's entrepreneurial, who's trying to do more than what can happen, as entrepreneurs, you're always pushing boundaries, right? So day one is very different from day 10 or a day 100. Your ideas on day 10 were 5. On day 100, there could be 50, right? Do you have an organization that can scale, that is highly tech-centric, or do you have systems that are scalable? So that's a question I feel an entrepreneur needs to always ask. Every minute of your time, every 30 minutes that you're blocking for something is that, do I need to do this? And how many times am I doing that same 30-minute task in a week or in a month or in a quarter, right? Does it need me? Like my travel schedule is a bit hectic, right? I was supposed to be in Cape Town the week before last. Last week I was in Munich. Tomorrow, Sunday we're flying to India, again, work, family. Then as soon as I'm back, I'm in Cape Town, right? And then 1 week in Mauritius, then again in India. Plus, we've got 15 African countries, so somehow I need to fit all of that as well. In my time, right? There was an event in Cape Town. I had needed to be there. My kids, they published it. Then if you look at media articles, there's an India Africa Entrepreneurship Forum where I've spoken. I was not there. So because they published, pre-published articles and so on and so forth, and I took a decision on a Sunday. I'm supposed to travel on a Monday, and I was like, no, I got to prioritize. This is not worth my time, right? And I decided no. And I needed. We've got. 30% of our business comes from the city of Cape Town, right? So it's important. It's an important city. I can meet partners, but I'm going there in August again. So I'm going to be there for 1.5 weeks, and that's the time that I can use. So as an entrepreneur or as a founder or as somebody who's leading decisions in an organization that are something critical, you've got to protect your time. Right? If you protect your time, you're able to do more in that same amount of time. What are the things that you're saying no to? We started. This is something that I heard, every morning while getting ready, I put on some of the other podcasts, and it's almost half an hour of good information early in the morning. Then I heard this. The biggest strategy for an entrepreneur is, as part of prioritization, the ability to say no.
Yeah. And I think it was Steve Jobs, actually, one of Steve Jobs' product developers was sharing, and he said the only question that Steve would come in and ask him is like, what have you said no to today? To see how he's prioritizing. And the guy would say, oh, I said no to doing this. And he was pushed back. Jobs would say, oh, but I know you didn't want to do that. What have you said no to that you want to do or see opportunity in? And that's the difference. We have to say no to things we actually want to do or we actually see potential in. But to do that, you have to prioritize. And sometimes that becomes the challenge of being like, what areas to focus on to get that capacity. But I think I agree with you. You need to ask that question of, do I need to be the one doing this? Is it me who needs to be the one at the event? Because as you grow, you need to prioritize your time as well. And the only way to be comfortable leaving that to others is also systems, procedures, and knowing the outcomes are predestined almost with those systems. But I know that we could spend a little bit longer here, but we're running out of time a little bit. But I usually ask a question, which is, what advice would you give on this topic to entrepreneurs, other entrepreneurs, or yourself 10 years ago? But I think I'm going to slightly change it because I know your daughter is with us today, and you're also your ambition for yourself to be an entrepreneur. So I'm going to change the question and ask, what advice would you give your daughter about capacity when she's going down her entrepreneurial journey? How would you suggest she approaches that? The mindset behind it.
We are not crude. The first thing, the first thing that's been in my mind is think long term. When you think short term, you want to do a lot of stuff, right? And the real magic happens in the longer term. And the best example of long term is compounding. Anything that you do compounds, right? Money is the best example because it's easy to understand, right? There's a great Indian story, of a king, who somebody in the kingdom does something fantastic, right? So the king says, ask for anything that you want, right? You've done such a great job, ask for gold, ask for the palace, I'll give you, right? Or ask for land, ask for whatever. He said, I don't want much, I'm a poor man, right? My needs are not a lot, right? He said, just take a chessboard. On the first block, put a grain of rice. Every next block, double it. Right? Anybody wants to take a wild guess? Just pick any number. How much do you think, you keep doubling till the 64th square? What will be the number of rice grains? Yeah, William.
2 billion.
64.
64. You're doubling in every second block.
Yeah. No, so this is
power 60.
Yeah, five.
So let's take it to like a 5 or 6 blocks. So first, your block is 1, second is 2, then 4, then 8, then 16, then 32, then 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2000 something, 4000 something, 8000, 16,000, 72,000. This is one block. 32,000, 64,000, 128,000, 120,000 in one block. Right? 256,000, 512,000. So before it reached half the chessboard, the granaries in the entire kingdom were empty. Right? So the power of compounding, right? When you're investing as well, if you're investing at 15%, rule of 72, it says that every 4.8 years, your money doubles, right? which means 5 years, we put 100,000, it's 200,000 at the end of 5 years. Next 5 years, 400,000. Next 5 years, it's 800,000, then 1.6 million, and then whatever, 3.2 million, right? So the magic happens in long term. I remember this Bill Gates quote which says people overestimate what they're going to achieve in 1 year and underestimate what they're going to achieve in 10 years, right? So thinking long term is very, very, very important for any entrepreneur or anything that you do in life, right? Have short term goals, but long term sort of a vision for yourself, right? And then you will think very differently. Your prioritization, matrix will be very different, if you're thinking from a long-term perspective. Magic happens in the long term, right? We were having this discussion in the car, right? My daughter and I are saying that, Dad, I want to be an actress and I want to go to US, to LA after she's 12 years old now. I got to give, what are the next steps? So I was like, okay, you got to achieve these 4 goals. One is, we were discussing create a podcast. One is, go to theater, do 5 amazing performances. One is invest $100 every month so that, there's an investor's mindset that is built, and start something small that is revenue generating, right? She still thinks it's unfair, right, for what she wants to achieve. But the thing is, in the long term, if your goal is big, right, you got to break it down into smaller goals in terms of what is helping you achieve that, right? And I made that mistake as well. I always thought that my big story is going to be when I do X. Until then, life does not matter. That was, my story. My life begins when I've done X, right? So that means the 10 years before that are useless, right? That's what the perspective was, right? And then the quote came to me somewhere listening to something which said, there are 2 lives, right? And the second one begins when you realize you have only one, right? And that's when you start thinking more practically. You're not thinking about that X situation. When that happens, it's going to be magical, right? And now the thinking changes in the second life that every step matters. You got to take small steps, build small systems, and it's going to compound to become that X, right? So the compounding step, at least that can happen at every step, and you're going to achieve your goal. But if you're only thinking that this is where life is going to begin, that tomorrow never comes, right?
I think super, super valuable for the entrepreneurs in life, having that time horizon, so extending the time horizon. And you'll be surprised how much that changes in your day-to-day. I think another good example, Steve, as you mentioned, Elon, is with Tesla, for example, had the opportunity to buy batteries from Ford for the Tesla cars, but chose instead to do the harder route and build his own batteries. But in 10 years after that, the value of his company versus if he was buying it, completely different. So it's really difficult to say no. It's really difficult to have that longer time horizon, but the compounding effects of it can increase your capacity tenfold in like you say, you overestimate what you can achieve this year, but if you have that compounding systems in place in 10 years, it's incredible what you'll be able to look back and see you've achieved. But thank you so much. And before we close, we open up to our audience to see if you have any questions related to the topic of today, doing more with less or capacity that you'd like to put forward to something. Don't be shy, guys. Let's train.
Nice to meet you. My name's Shaheen. I wanted to ask, do you have a particular view on how to build long-term trust and partnerships?
Honest, transparency.
Right. The thing is, transactional things will happen on the way, right? If you build trust relationship, I know, the person, we've done enough together, as organizations. Then the thing is, the smaller things don't matter. A lot of the transactional things, we have a great partnership with a large organization, a buy now pay later in Africa. He just called, and we've done a lot of great things together, right? It started on a rough note, then we solved, then, it got better. He called me that, can you change my billing cycle? Because when we do buy now, pay later, we there's a lot of credit and we need to pay. So can you change my billing cycle? If anybody else would have said, I would have said no. But because there's trust relationship and years of bonding, I said, oh yeah, what's a big deal? Send me an email and we'll get it done, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's all about being honest. You're not scoring a one-up, right? It's always thinking of win-win situations, right? Sometimes it's okay to give more and get less, and it all gets balanced over a period of time. So it's like building honest relationships, right, and long-term relationships.
Super valuable, great question. Another one?
My name is Rudy. I just wanted to know, what are the bottlenecks that you're having and challenges in East and Central Africa? Concepts.
Or not. East Africa, I mean, again, so we present in Kenya. We through banking partnership with operational in Tanzania and DRC. Central Africa, we don't operate a lot. But DRC is almost central. To work with the regulators, get the license. Of course, they have to be strict, but it takes a lot of time, right? So you deploy a lot of resources, you need compliance people, anti-money laundering team, you need country head, you need a board, to be functional, but you don't know when you're gonna get the license, right? So that is definitely there. From a payments perspective, East Africa is phenomenally amazing, and it's very different from everything else that we've done because if let's say Kenya, 80% or 90% of transactions happen through M-Pesa, which is mobile money. Right, South Africa, 70% of the transactions happen through card. Mauritius, 70-80% transactions happen through cash and card, right? So you've got to understand a different way of doing business when you're in a different country, right? The way people deal is very different in every African country. South Africa is very different from Kenya culturally, right? The way you talk to people, the way they communicate, it may mean something else in South Africa, something else in Mauritius, something else in Kenya, right? So a culture. Of course, understand localizing, the local challenges in every country. So, we have certain challenges there. But again, the bigger picture is what keeps us excited. If, it's very easy to get bogged down with these challenges, but the bigger picture of 1.4 billion active consumers, the world is going to sell to them, the world is going to collaborate with them. So these things look small, but it's taken us 2 years, right, of struggle.
Yeah, and I think particularly with our context in Mauritius, with our startups, we always view scaling to Africa. And I think more so now, we're always looking for that scale, which is a great development in our ecosystem. I think to create startups with that last, that actually can scale, we need to. But that context and that nuance of understanding, it is very, it's not a plug and play. Yes, you may have systems, but you still need to take the nuance and the context. Super important for scale. Okay, I think we'll have one last question before we close, please.
Hi, my name is Nadia. My question is, do you have advice on when and how to make your first hire successfully in terms of the timing of it? Because usually you have to do it to scale, but at the time you need to do it, it comes at a higher financial trade-off. And then how to find the right person and successfully make that transition so that you're letting go of those things that you're doing over and over again every 30 minutes.
That decision. So I have, let's say I'm competent on 5 things, right? I don't understand coding as an example, right? And if it's a tech company, I need coding knowledge, right? So either I hire, but I don't have money, right? When it's just an idea, I want to hire, but I don't have money. So what do? I give equity. Is somebody willing to come in for an equity? Does somebody believe in that idea? Right. So either I offer equity and get that person for a talent that I do not have. Right. Now the thing is, when you're hiring, again, it's a decision of return on investment. If it's money going out. For an entrepreneur, sometimes it's money going out from your own pocket or you're trying to raise capital. You may or may not have raised capital, but you need to get the job done. Right. So you've got to figure out, can you afford? And how do you incentivize the person, whether it's a combination of some small money and some sizable equity or total equity and no money, right? That is when you don't have the, capital. Now, if you're opening a shop, you need sales people from day one, but you're going to get revenue also, hopefully, from day one, right? So different scenarios need different solutions, right? I mean, even today, if we are hiring a person, we're more than 200 people, it has to go through an executive committee approval. Every single hire. What is the business case? What is the value? What are we doing without the person? How can we manage without the person? If all those answers are ticked, then we hire. I mean, even at this stage, we are prudent with regards to every small investment or big investment, I mean, any size of investment that we are making, right? And then, it's nuanced, right? In terms of the people that you're hiring, the talent that you're hiring. Is there a connection, right? Do you feel these people culturally fit to my culture or the way I operate, right? That is very, very important. A wrong hire can take you back, instead of taking you forward, can take you back by 6 to 8 months, right? So an organization that I invested in called ShipRaiser, the founder is an Indian guy operating in Cape Town. He says he takes a long time to hire, maybe 6 months. If he's decided to hire, it'll take him 3 to 6 months to hire the person because he needs to analyze, he needs to question, he needs to reflect, he needs to spend time with the person, right? And I don't know if organizations can wait or not, but today, he's got 50 people, so he can afford to take 6 months to hire the 51st person. But again, it's very, very nuanced and in terms of at what stage you're hiring, what role you're hiring for, and what is the need.
I fully agree, and I think really important subject that we did fully touch on today, which is, the people side of building your capacity, whether you're leveraging technology or people, it's still a consideration that you do. And I agree, in different stages, you think about it differently. Often we are forced to try and optimize the speed because of scaling situations, taking opportunities, but the decision made badly is much worse in the long run than taking the time. I fully agree with that. The other piece of advice, particularly for solo founders or founders who maybe small co-founding teams, is when we hire, we often look for the unicorn. And I like this example, which is I want someone who can take over my role, that can do everything I can do, who's lived all of my experiences, who knows everything. And this is the unicorn. Whereas that's so difficult, and we spend months hiring process, and we to basically say, oh, there's no one like me out there, I can't hire for this role. But the way to look at it is to actually break it down and say, well, what are the 3 core things I can do that others can't? And you can, let's say it's a unicorn, you can find an animal with a horn, a rhino, and then you can find the horse, and then you find some fireflies for the sparkles of the thing. And then together they make the unicorn that you need. So we need to also be aware of how you approach these capacity challenges. And it's not about a simple replacement of yourself. It is about the output of the business, not yourself. So really, really nice nuance. I know we are a little over, but I just wanted to say thank you so much again for joining us. Really always a pleasure to learn from these conversations. And I think what I hope we take out of today, particularly the founders in the room, is how to approach the mindset of capacity and how, in our context in Africa, in our ecosystem as an investor, when we look at companies, it's about capital efficiency. It's about how far you can make that $1 stretch. And nowadays, with technology and the scale ambitions we have as an island, this becomes super important. And it's not important once you're ready to hire 200 plus employees. It's important from day one. How are you using your time and making that 5x more efficient than the entrepreneur standing next to you? How are you increasing your capacity? So it's not a nice to have, it's a must have. And I hope you take something out of this. And with that, I just want to go round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us.